Hello and welcome back. Before I begin, I'd like to give a big thank you to Jace0609 for becoming my latest subscriber. Thank you so much, I really appreciate it. And now, on with the haul. This is going to be another book haul from the Book Thing of Baltimore, which is a wonderful nonprofit which is open every weekend and where you can pick up as many free books as you'd like and drop off any unwanted books you might have. And my first find was from the children's boxes, so unfortunately I took this from some poor child who might have wanted it, but oh well. This was Sweet and Sour, Tales from China Retold. I'm a big fan of all kinds of folklore and legend, so I'm always eager to find another anthology. And then somewhat more perplexingly in the children's section, I found the Talmud, or at least a one-volume edition. The actual Talmud is many, many volumes long, and for those of you who don't know, the Talmud is basically the commentary on the Torah, which forms the basis of Jewish law and custom. So nice one-volume edition. This is part of the Universal Classics Library Hebraic Literature Deluxe Edition. And then I found Histoire de la peinture française, unfortunately volume 2 by Pierre Francastel, although it's a history of French painting, so presumably you can read volume 2 without being in too much pain from not having read volume 1. And then I got this novel, Straw Dogs by Gordon M. Williams. This is apparently the novel on which the film was based, a pretty famous film starring Dustin Hoffman, directed by Sam Peckinpah. And I saw the film a good while ago when I was in my teens. I don't remember exactly how old I was. And I was not crazy about it. And I wonder if maybe I was a little young and if I watched it now I might like it better. But I figured I might as well get the novel. And then I got this novel on Heroes and Tombs by Ernesto Sabato, which I had honestly never heard of before, but I looked at the back and it appears to be quite a classic of Latin American literature, so I figured it was about time I familiarized myself with it. And then The 13th Valley by John M. Del Vecchio. This is a novel of the Vietnam War, and it looks like it was quite highly acclaimed when it came out. The title was vaguely familiar to me, but I hadn't quite heard of it before. And then I got Four Stories by Rachel Ingalls. Rachel Ingalls is a terrific writer. I've read 2 of her previous books, a collection of stories called Times Like These and a novel called Mrs. Caliban. And her stories are really heartbreaking, a lot of them, and often have a touch of the surreal. So I'm looking forward to reading this collection. And then I got A Violent Life by Pier Paolo Pasolini. As those of you who have watched my movie hauls know, I recently watched basically everything Pasolini has ever directed. Have not read any of his books yet, although he was an acclaimed novelist and poet, as well as being a director and screenwriter. And excited to find this, I got Robert Kennedy and His Times by Arthur M. Schlesinger Jr. Those of you who've seen my first couple of book hauls will know that I have been searching for a good long while for just a nice comprehensive biography of Bobby Kennedy. And judging by the length of this, it looks like I have finally found it. And then I got this, Must You Conform by Robert Lindner. I'm not really sure what this is, but judging by the cover and the fact that it was published by Grove Press, it probably is some sort of treatise on sexuality and how probably American sexuality is too repressed or something like that. It's clearly an older book, probably from the 60s. And then I got this novel, Two Gentlemen Sharing by William Corlett. And Walking Naked by Nina Bowden, or Bawden. This is another volume in the series I discussed in my last book haul, the Virago Modern Classics series, and this one is the one with the little apple imprint, the white apple. There's also one with a red apple imprint, because, as I mentioned, the Virago Modern Classics series, just the formatting is all over the place. And Nina Bawden wrote a novel called Carrie's War, which I have not read, but I saw the Masterpiece Theater production and thought that was quite good, so I'm looking forward to reading something by her. And then I got In Search of Gay America by Neil Miller, Women and Men in a Time of Change. And America in the 60s, An Intellectual History by Ronald Berman. Okay, now this is where things get kind of interesting. Or do they? Alright, not yet. I'll tell you about how things get interesting in a minute. Then I got How the Dead Live by Will Self. Will Self is a writer who I somehow didn't think would really appeal to me. He writes just really nasty stories about nasty people doing nasty things, which are not always bad, but sometimes I find writers revel too much in the nastiness and don't really transcend it or provide any kind of meaningful reading experience. And for some reason that's what I thought Will Self was going to be like. But then I read I guess sort of a novel in stories he wrote called Liver. And it was, I think it may have come out as recently as last year, maybe the year before. I reviewed it for my column. And I thought it was great. And far from being, in a way it was pitiless, but it was pitiless in a very interesting and moving way. So I'm looking forward to trying more of his work. And then I got a couple of anthologies that were edited by Robert Silverberg, who's a science fiction writer I really like. No Mind of Man, and The Ends of Time. This one was edited by him. And then I got this book, Nightshade, a novel by Jay McCormick. I have no idea who Jay McCormick is, but apparently according to this, he is the author of November Storm. Honestly, never heard of this book, just saw the spine, somehow the spine appealed to me, liked the cover, and it has one of these kind of breathless sounding blurbs in the front, and it just sounded kind of interesting and I grabbed it. We'll see if it pays off. Here's The Best of Robert Silverberg. This is an anthology of his writing. Then I got this very large novel, Clem Anderson by R.V. Castle. The only reason I've heard of R.V. Castle is because he co-edited with Joyce Carol Oates a Norton Anthology of Contemporary Literature that I have. But this is, as you can see, a big doorstopper novel, apparently about a writer and the torture of the writer's experience. And I got The Shadow of the Sun by Richard Kapuscinski, who is a famous, basically a famous journalist, and this is a collection of his writings on Africa. Then I got this double-decker, The Folded Leaf by William Maxwell and Dark Legend by Frederick Wortham, M.D. The Folded Leaf is quite a famous novel about, I believe, a boyhood friendship by William Maxwell. And this other book looks really odd. It looks like it's a true crime story. I was basically more interested in The Folded Leaf, but what the heck? 2 for the price of 1? So to speak. They're free, of course. Then, continuing my getting Norman Mailer stuff, this is The Gospel According to the Sun, which is, I believe, his first-person novel about Jesus. So Norman Mailer thinks he can write as Jesus, as well as many other things. So excited to find this. The Decay of the Angel by Yukio Mishima. Mishima is one of my favorite writers. He wrote one of my all-time favorite books, The Sailor Who Fell from Grace with the Sea, as well as plenty of other really good novels, After the Banquet, Confessions of a Mask, Temple of the Golden Pavilion. And he also wrote this tetralogy called The Sea of Fertility. And I've slowly but surely been finding each of the first 3 volumes of the book thing, and this is the very last one. So now I have them all and can eventually start reading them. And Classic History, The History of the Kings of Britain by Geoffrey of Monmouth. And The Essential Rumi. a novel, Le Palace by Claude Simon, famous French writer and winner of the Nobel Prize. Éducation Européenne by Romain Gary. Really excited to find this because I had read Gary's autobiographical work, Chien Blanc, or White Dog, which was also the basis of the Samuel Fuller film, and was really looking forward to reading some more of his work. And this is where things get interesting. I promised you things were going to get interesting. I found these 3 Patricia Highsmith novels, Ripley Underwater, Ripley Underground, and Ripley's Game. These are all sequels to The Talented Mr. Ripley, which is just a wonderful book. And I have a feeling that I have at least 1 or 2 of these somewhere. But I wasn't sure, so I decided to grab them all and check for them later. Then I got Utopia 3 by George Alec Effinger, great science fiction writer. Rites of Passage, a novel by Joanne Greenberg. Mythologies of the Ancient World. Another Norman Mailer of A Fire on the Moon. This one, Mailer tackles the space program. A classic, Mr. Facey Romford's Hounds by R.S. Surtees. A volume of Leonie Dell's monumental biography of Henry James. This one is The Middle Years, which I may already have, but I grabbed it just in case. I'm trying to collect the whole 5-volume biography and then read it. Georges Simenon novel, Le Meurtre d'un étudiant. L'homme moderne et son éducation by Gaston Berger. Modern Man and His Education. The Summer Tree, book 1 of a famous fantasy trilogy by Guy Gabriel Kay. And last but not least, Le Tour de la France par 2 enfants, or A Tour of France by 2 children. And if you've made it this far, thanks for watching, and I hope you'll join me for my next video.